Relationships have been a hugely important part of the Sonic series pretty much since 1992. The dynamic between these characters and how they all worked and interacted together, serving as one of the main reasons that fans would come back for more time after time, game after game, comic after comic, and now even movie after movie. Sonic and Tails, Knuckles and Eggman, Amy and Gamma, not to mention all the awesome interactions and team-ups we may never have gotten to see were it not for the various comics. Despite wordless stories, cheesy dialogue, and more dubbing and audio mixing issues than you can shake a stick at. Along with the amazing gameplay, fans fell in love with the characters, pushing the Sonic series far beyond just being fun to play. People cared about what happened to its characters, and watching them grow across one or multiple games actually became a big part of the series' appeal. Despite the toning down of the story in both tone and complexity for Sonic Heroes, I always remember respecting what it attempted when it came to the characters. People with history or chemistry were all teamed together and went on various personal quests that would all eventually converge with Metal Sonic's schemes. And it was this somewhat out of left field narrative formula that would give us Team Dark. These guys had no business being this good together. I'd never seen a group of characters slot so well into the misfits and found family categories. They were charming, vulnerable in their own ways, and absolutely relentless in their mission. Their motivations were admittedly somewhat selfish on the surface, but watching them grow to genuinely care for each other, each pulling the other to their feet whenever things got them down, it was a really wholesome relationship to watch, especially coming out of what was the very basic story of that game. Then Sonic 06 came along, dialed up their wholesomeness to 11, and made me want to legally adopt all three of them. These guys deserve to last forever, and I honestly can't see any reason they would ever need to split up.
What?
Yeah, you see, because 06 single-handedly murdered the franchise, stole its left shoe, and signed everyone at the company up for diet pill newsletters, Sega and Sonic Team proceeded to enter a deep state of denial, where anything that happened in or around the game had to be wiped from existence at all costs. Just like how Solaris was extinguished in the end, Team Dark and all the lore painstakingly built throughout the Adventure era was effectively erased, leaving everyone with absolutely no characteristic anchor going forward. And this would have been where I team up Shadow and Silver. Sonic Team are so determined to kill off Team Dark? Fine. Well, actually it's not fine, but I'm dealing with it in my own way. If Sonic Team had decided that Team Dark had run its course, if you're being logical, that decision should have only been made once there was an alternate plan for those characters. Well, logically, that decision wouldn't have been made at all, but having something for both Shadow and Silver to do after losing Team Dark and Blaze respectively would have done wonders for their characters, potentially avoiding the whole stagnating in the depths of misuse thing altogether. But when pairing characters together successfully, we need to ask ourselves two things. Will this pairing work narratively? And will these characters have engaging chemistry? Narratively, I think Shadow and Silver had a lot of potential had they teamed up after 06. Arguably, any major event that takes place in the present would also impact Silver's time. So realistically, there's never really too big a roadblock for bringing him back. Rather than letting these two awesome characters fall into obscurity for over a decade, for failings that had nothing to do with them I might add, they could have paired them up and actually gotten them involved in the narratives of the games that followed. Supporting characters in this series don't have the luxury of being Sonic the Hedgehog. Just pick him up, drop him in any setting, and let him do his thing. But for the supporting cast, with a cast of this size, they need an anchor. Something to associate them with and serve as the glue that ties them to everything. If Sonic Team were so determined to wash the bad taste of 06 out of their mouth by prematurely ending Team Dark, then this could have been a good compromise. Something new to explore. We could have had them teaming up to take on outbreaks of Gaia monsters during Unleashed, dealing with time anomalies and actually helping Sonic during Generations. Imagine getting to go through some of those revisited stages as Shadow and Silver and experiencing it from their point of view. Hell, even in Forces. When Infinite took down Silver, Shadow's protege in this reality, it would have made things a lot more personal and narratively important. Infinite using Silver to get back at Shadow for humiliating him? Watching characters be emotionally invested in things helps get the audience invested, and you can bet your ass Shadow wouldn't have been too pleased to see his friend and mentee beaten like that. Narratively, there was loads that could have been done with this pairing, and any of it would have been far preferable to the cheerleading job they all got instead. 06 alone was enough to convince me these guys would have worked well together. In fact, it was enough at the time to make me think that this actually might have been their plan going forward. It was Shadow's image that was stolen by Mephiles, who then went on to manipulate Silver, so Shadow now being the one to guide him, I think would have been an awesome juxtaposition of this. Throughout 06, Silver wore his heart on his sleeve. He reacted emotionally, often irrationally, to pretty much everything, always looking to someone else for guidance. Mephiles, Blaze, I think Shadow would have made an excellent mentor for him. Silver has a lot to learn, and Shadow is now a veteran, someone who can serve as a role model and help Silver develop both as a hero and a person. Shadow has already gone through a huge character arc, overcoming his torturous inner turmoil to grow into the awesome hero he is now. But Silver, he hasn't fully done this yet. He wasn't given the chance. Yeah, he experienced some growth and had a pretty decent showing in 06, but Shadow could have served as a way of helping him continue that growth, all the while opening up new avenues for developing Shadow at the same time. He's gone through his revenge arc, his grief for Maria, his amnesia, his origins. Now he would have this brand new person to care about. And I'm fully convinced watching their bond grow while working alongside each other to protect the world would have been, forgive my overuse of this word, it's gonna happen a lot, really wholesome. Shadow's not an overly vocal communicator, but his protective nature always spoke for itself. You knew that without hesitation, he would lay his life on the line for those he cared about. Shadow and Silver both stood to benefit from being teamed up, and I honestly think that narratively, they could have worked really well together. The first time they met was enough to convince me. That kick to the head, Silver impressing Shadow with his determination and quick uptake of chaos powers, the two of them being thrust into the past on a mission to find the truth, all leading to that touching moment where Silver feels compassion for the innocent girl caught up in the middle of all this. A feeling that Shadow might know all too well. This shit is freaking kismet, and I really don't get why it's always down to the fans to see it. I think Miyakawa had the paths of these two fine gentlemen cross for a reason. It didn't happen in such a narratively important way by accident. It was Shadow, after all, who truly opened Silver's eyes to the deception of Mephiles. Not Blaze, not Sonic, Shadow. Shadow guided this naive psychokinetic right from the moment they met. And if you'll forgive the wording, it's no use denying this chemistry. We've all heard that old made-for-fiction saying, opposites attract, right? We could sit here and debate for hours about how true that is in reality, but in fiction, there's a multitude of examples where this combination has proven both effective and, perhaps more importantly, immensely entertaining. Holmes and Watson, Donald and Goofy, Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson, Lord Beerus and Whis. Some of the most gripping arguments and hilarious disagreements I've ever watched have been between odd couple pairings like this, and I honestly can't get enough of these kind of duos when they're done right. Then, you also have the duos who are characteristically aligned, and you don't even have to look far beyond the Sonic series itself for examples of these. Similar or different, like how some colors go well together and others don't, characters with specific traits are often predisposed to either working really well when put together, being a total disaster, or worse yet, being boring. Peas in a pod generally work nicely together, those who share pretty much identical traits and values. You're not going to see a whole lot of conflict in groups like this, at least not often, and any you do see is usually resolved swiftly and with no lasting damage to the relationship. Teams like this get stuff done, the beauty of the relationship lying completely within the harmony. Jokes are light-hearted, goals are distinct, and for the most part, everyone's pretty much on the same page. Opposites, on the other hand, aren't so straightforward. Communication is often awkward or one-sided. Goals are often personal. Teaming up starts out more as a means to an end than the beginning of a friendship. These relationships tend to grow slower, but usually with a much bigger emotional payoff in the end. With Shadow and Silver, I think we could actually get the best of both worlds here. Both are insanely powerful, both are relentlessly persistent, and both are emotionally vulnerable with traumatic pasts. Or should that be futures? The main difference between these two is how they choose to conduct themselves, their social traits. And this is why I think they would make both a hilarious and immensely effective team. Their goals and skills are very much aligned, but their dispositions are very different. Silver is very on the nose and enthusiastic. Shadow's more quiet and reserved. And I think that if done right, this dynamic could be both super wholesome and hilarious in equal measure. These guys have been through a lot, and I'd love to see them help each other continue to grow with this student-teacher dynamic. Shadow is combat experienced and more withdrawn. Silver is young and enthusiastically naive. This relationship has the potential for huge emotional breadth. You can easily imagine them sharing laughs as Silver says something Disney-level idealistic. Well, I can imagine Silver laughing, while Shadow does that signature cheeky smile he does when he thinks no one's looking. They'd have arguments due to clashing ideals, endure trials, show their loyalty, and possibly even share their vulnerabilities with each other. Like the best relationships in fiction, I want to be hit in the gut with laughter in one scene, and right in the feel bone with another. Basically, think Gohan and Piccolo. Give me my Silhan and Shadowlo. I'm serious, give it to me. A long game bonding session like that for these two? That would have been truly special to see. Each one had something to teach the other, and in an entertainment sense, their personalities would mesh perfectly. Past and future coming together to save the present. Coming as a shock to precisely no one, I probably spend far more time than any sane person should thinking of ways we might have avoided the narrative stagnation of the past 10 or so years. Which characters should have stayed together? Who should have been paired up? Who should have gotten a spin-off to keep them relevant? What combination of people and events could have pulled us back from Sega's own perceived failures with 06 without diving headfirst into the sterile narrative mediocrity we ended up with? On the bright side, I'm somewhat cautiously, maybe sorta hopeful that Frontiers may be about to at least partially restore the series to something more than this. I have no illusions whatsoever that it will be the panacea to all of the problems the series has, but if we even slightly move back towards the supporting cast actually mattering, and the interactions between them all being narratively important, then I'm all in. But I'd like to hear what you guys think. Do you agree that Shadow and Silver would make an entertaining team? How would you like to have seen them used after 06? And what other character pairings would you like to see happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found yourself enjoying the video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit that bell icon so you never miss a video. You can also join the channel Discord, follow me on Twitter, or support me on Patreon or with a super thanks. All the links are in the description. But for now, a big thank you for watching. And as always guys, take care.